Hello crafty makers, this is Hannah and welcome back to my channel. Today in my beginner series we are going to attempt to reproduce this card. I never make more than one of a card. Well, sometimes at Christmas time people ask for card sets and I'll do them, but it's very difficult for me to do the same card twice. So I thought I'd give it a try tonight with this particular project. It's very easy to do, and as always, because this is a part of my beginners series, I don't want you to go out and buy all of these items. I'm sure you have a lot of things already in your craft room that you can substitute for the items that I have here. These are just the things that I use. I want you to use what you have. Okay, so let's get started, and I'm going to go through the supplies that you're going to need to produce this card. All right, the first thing, you're going to need stencils. You need at least two because we want to get a layered effect in our stenciling. So I'm using this leaf design stencil and then this butterfly design, but you can decide what kind of background you want. It doesn't have to be this particular theme. You will need, obviously, sentiment stamps. This is the sentiment set that I'm using is called Bad Days Happen. And the sentiment that I used on here, I used two. I used Seriously, and it's just a bad day, not a bad life. But you can choose whatever. When I made this card, I was making it for a challenge, and we were supposed to use washi tape, and I had just gotten this really pretty washi tape for my planner that has the days of the week on it. So I thought, oh, that would be really cute to use that washi for the challenge and these combination of stamps. So just grab whatever stamps you want to use for your card. This is a cool set, and I think I might use a different sentiment on the new card. We'll see. Okay, you're going to need black cardstock. Well, if you're going to use the colors that I'm using, and if the black is what you want to do, but I'm going to have a black base again because I'm going to use the same color of ink, and this needs to be cut to 4 1/4 by 11. So if you have a piece of 8 1/2 by 11 cardstock, you just cut it in right in the middle at 4 1/4, and then we'll score it at 5 1/2, and that will give us our standard A2 size card, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. You want to get a piece of white cardstock to stencil your image onto. Now this is Nina 110 pound solar white cardstock. I cut mine to 6 by 6 because my stencils are 6 by 6. I know I'm going to cut my panel down. I don't want to lose so much of my image. I want to have the butterflies on the card. So depending on your stencil, if you have a long stencil, a round stencil, just figure out the stencil you're using and cut your paper to accommodate your stencil size. Okay, obviously we're going to need inks. Now I'm using the Ranger Distress inks, but you can use any dye ink that you would like. So the colors I'm using are Ice Spruce, Squeeze Lemonade, Shaded Lilac, Cracked Pistachio, and Worn Lipstick. Those were the colors that I used on the first card. And as I said, I plan to repeat those colors. You need Versamark embossing stamp pad or some other embossing stamp pad, and you need a black ink pad, and I would recommend a dye ink. If you have StazOn, I wouldn't recommend using StazOn. It tends to stain a little bit, but you know, if that's all you have, then use that. You'll need some clear embossing powder, an embossing tool, and this, for those who don't know, this embossing powder tube is just a piece of, it's like t-shirt fabric, and it has talc inside of it, or powder inside of it, and you use it to remove the static from your card prior to embossing on it. And we will be embossing our sentiment with the clear embossing powder, so that's what you need that for. You will need a heat tool. This is the Chandler heat tool, but any heat tool will do. Some people, I understand, use hair dryers. I don't know how that works, if they get hot enough, but you will need some heat to get your stencils. Okay. You need a stamp press or an acrylic block. I am using the Vera Sunlit Stamping Pro, and I love this stamping platform. I have Tim Holtz and several others, but when I bought this one, it immediately became my go-to machine to use when I'm stamping. And I really love these magnets because I was getting so tired of wrapping magnets in washi tape, and you know, and then it would get all grimy and tear. And so these have these great little covers. I actually ordered 2 more sets, so now I have 6, and I, you know, put 1 set on my little mini travel size Tim Holtz. But I'll be using this. So you just need a stamping platform or an acrylic block to stamp your sentiment. You need a low tack tape. I use Scotch removable tape, but any low tack tape, you can use purple tape, but the purple tape tends to pull up your paper sometimes when you're working with this, so I don't use it so much anymore. And then of course you need your washi tape, and this is my days of the week washi. You will need double-sided tape, a good strong glue, tweezers, a die pick, or it's just a pokey tool to I use it to remove the double-sided tape from the release paper. Some sort of tape runner, because there are some elements that you're going to want to use the tape runner on as opposed to either one of these adhesives. You need a bone folder, some sequins. You always need a pair of scissors when you're crafting, and of course blending brushes to blend your ink on your card. Okay, so I'm going to stop the video, and I wanted to say to those who may have watched some of my other videos, I don't have a lot of subscribers, and you know, that's okay. I really actually do these videos to put them on my blog, but I figured I may as well put them on the YouTube channel too. But when I was doing my videos, I noticed that when I would put something down on my Tim Holtz mat, it would make this loud jarring noise. So I saw a hack for using Dollar Tree cutting mats to just make a larger cutting mat. So these are 4 of these $1 mats put together, and then I just joined them together with some printed masking tape that I got at the Dollar Tree. So the hubby said he would get me 10 more of these, and I'm going to make a couple of more for the workstations in my area. And you can still use them for cutting. You just have to be careful not to cut through your tape. But I wanted it mainly as a work surface for my videos. And so this is a great $4 investment. You can't get a cutting mat this size for $4. So that's just another crafting on a budget tip for you. This is a good deal. This is a good buy. Okay, so I'm going to give you an opportunity to gather your supplies. The list of supplies is reflected in the description box below, and you can also find them on my blog along with a step tutorial for those who prefer to do it that way rather than watching a video. Okay, we'll be right back and we'll get started. Okay, so now let's start with our stenciling. I have my stencil turned out. This one is not 6x6, it's a little smaller than that. So I taped it down. First I taped my paper down to my mat, and now I'm taping my stencil using the removable tape so that it doesn't slide around while I'm working. And then I will just move the stencil and get the design that I want. Because we're doing layering, you don't have to worry so much about perfect placement of the stencil. Okay, so I'm going to take my cracked pistachio and dab that, and I'm going to start in this corner simply because on the other side the stencil is not in place over there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get this stenciled in. And I do it randomly because I know I want to go in with other colors on top of this. I'm going to go in to these leaves with the iced spruce distress ink. So I'm leaving some white space. You always need to leave some white areas so that when you come in with your second color, it has a defined area of its own. So just remember that when you're doing your stencils. Oops, that slid up a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to take my ice spruce now and come in with that so that I can start to see what kind of color development I'm getting. This is always different every time you do it. So here we go, and we're coming in with that, and I'm leaving this white space in the middle because I'm going to put my butterflies there, and I want that area to be highlighted a little bit. So you want to be careful when you're putting down these inks because you don't want you really don't want your colors to become muddy. Let's see if I can zoom in here a little bit. Yeah. Okay, so you can see the colors, and you just sort of blend them in and just look and see how the colors are looking. If you feel like you need to go back in with your lighter color again, you can certainly do that. You want your leaves to have highlight. You can put yellow in them. I did the last time. I used a little bit of the squeezed lemonade. I think, though, I'm happy with this. How these look. The color's not as intense. as the other card, but that's okay because I don't want them to look the same. So now I'm going to take my squeezed lemonade and I'm going to give some of these flowers or these leaves a little yellow highlight, and that's just random. You just do it however you feel. Um, it's your creative license. I pull mine up and look. This is, I need to go back in with some cracked pistachio because that ice spruce sort of took over a little bit on my leaves, but we'll see. It might be that I'll leave it. It's just, it's really up to you. You're the artist, and so you can make your world look however you want your world to look, because it is, in fact, your world. But I do think I'm going to hit this with just a little bit more, another layer of the cracked pistachio. I want to lighten some of these up just a little bit where they got too dark with the ice spruce. But it's pretty. It's a pretty color. Yeah. And I'm going to put a little more yellow in. I'm going to use my bigger brush. I popped the head off the middle one in between, and it's the best size. And I have another one that I've been using for makeup, so I don't think that's going to work. I'm going to have to order another brush. But I'm just going to order that size. Okay. So there we go. And now I've gotten my background to a point that I'm happy with it, right for this moment. I'm going to take this out and my shaded violet, because I'm now going to put down my butterflies. So we can remove this stencil and remove the tape from it. I use a baby wipe to wipe down my stencils when I'm using them at my desk like this. I don't want to go into the bathroom and wash them. When I'm doing the painting, I always keep a pail of hot soapy water on the counter in my bathroom, and when I use a stencil, I'll just go drop it in there. But for these little stencils, I can just wipe them down with the baby wipe, and we're good to go. And I keep a plastic bag. When I use the baby wipe just once like that, I throw it in this bag, and that keeps it moist, and my baby wipes last a lot longer. So there's that. All right, so now we're going to take our butterfly stencil and we're going to place it. Now, your decision about how to configure your butterflies is your decision. I knew that I wanted one in the middle, the big one in the middle. And if I didn't want to use it this way, which is where you get all the butterflies in the center, I didn't want that. So I shifted it so that the big butterfly is right here in the center. And then I can just move it around to pick up the colors of the other butterflies. So I'm going to make the main part of his body yellow. I'm just going to put a little tape here to hold this down. And I'm going to tape it down. I don't want to put too much tape on this because I'm going to be moving this die around a lot. So, all right. And I'm just going to go into his body. And there is no rhyme or reason to how I'm doing this or why I chose the colors that I did this just colors I picked up. I'm going to try some of the faded jeans in here in a minute. Okay, so I made that yellow, and now I need my worn lipstick. Oops, sorry about that. Okay. And I'm just going to come in down around the tips of his wings, and I'm just sort of pouncing my brush on here. It's not going to matter that much because I'm going to come in with a third color, but I just want to get some of that reddish color in there like that. And so then I need to lift this up to see, make sure I can still see the outline of my butterfly. That's good. That looks good. So now I need to come in with, I think I'm going to put a little yellow around his head, where his antennae are. Yeah, and that'll blend in nice with the leaves, and it will leave me with my impression of my butterfly. Oh, I didn't clean my brush, so that came out a little orangey, but I think that's going to be okay. I think that's going to work just fine. Let's see when I pull him up. Oh yeah, that's pretty. That gave us a whole new look to our cards. Okay, so now that we've got that butterfly done, we have to decide on the placement of our other butterflies. Now we can color them in where they are down here, and the color that you choose is entirely up to you. So I think I want to make my butterflies just a little bit different color. So I am going to experiment a little bit. I need to find a piece of scrap paper. I'm going to experiment off on a sheet of scrap paper with this tumble glass before I put it on here. Okay, so I found a piece of scrap paper, and whoa, my tumbled glass may have dried out. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, like that. I just need to press it down. I just have this little small cube, and I'm going to use that on this guy right here. And then I'll reverse his wings, his wing color. So I'm going to make him a little blue, and then I'm going to use the yellow around his head. Okay, so I'm going to color these in. You can color yours. You don't need to watch me color. Just position your stencil wherever you think you'll get the best effect from your stenciling, and then once you've got that all done, we can move on to the next step. All right, now I got all of my butterflies colored in, and I want to go back in with a little more of my cracked pistachio on my leaves. I'm just not feeling them. And one thing that you have to remember when you're working with the distress inks is that they will lighten up on you after they've been down for a while. So you need to, bear that in mind, that when you're putting it down, just remember that as it dries, the colors will lighten up. The regular distress inks do the same thing. So I just want to put a little more green in my plants. They were just really looking way too dark, and I want to lighten it up. So the cracked pistachio will do that for me. And then in the places where the leaves are over the butterflies, that's a part of the layering, and that is what gives you that what's called the infinity look. And it looks like all of your stencils are being pushed back and that they go on and on. It gives you a lot of depth. Okay, so I'm going to lift this up to see if I'm more satisfied with this color. Yeah, I'm much more satisfied with that. I'm going to put a little yellow in another place where it's dark. And the reason I don't want so much darkness in some of these areas is because you have to have highlights on your project. And so just remember that when the eye is looking at something, it immediately wants to go to a place where there's lightness and brightness. So you want to make sure that you don't get a lot of dark and muddy colors all in the same area. Okay, so that's better. I like that. We'll clean this brush off. And it'll look weird when you first do it, but then once you cut your panel down to size, it will look totally different. So I'm just going to go in now on my leaves and just put a little yellow highlight in there. Again, just to brighten it up and break up the, some of the darkness in here. We'll put some so it'll cover the wings of my butterfly. Oops! Well, that was a little bit more than what I wanted. Okay. All right. So I'm going to now cut this down to the size panel that I want. And what I suggest that you do is play with it a little bit before you cut it. You don't have to cut it evenly on both sides. You need to move it around to see what appeals to you. And remember, you're going to embellish it, and so your embellishments are going to look, make a difference in how your project looks. All right, so I'm going to clean up this stencil. I'm going to cut down my panel, and I'll be right back. And before I cut my panel, I want to show you how I took my wider brush and blended. I went back and continued blending my inks, and it's like it lightened them up and it's pressing them back into the card. So now I'm going to sort of play with it to see how I want to cut this panel. I know that this part needs to come off, and I've got to get this panel down to 3 3/4 by 5, because that's the size that I'm going to need, because I think I'm going to double mat this card, and that would require me cutting another piece of cardstock. But let's see. I know this is how I play. I have my little paper clips. I'll sit this to one side. Well, they're not paper clips, but my little pin curl clips. And this is how I decide if I am going to make a change to my project. I use these little clips to hold things down so that I can look at them and see if it's working for me, if I think I need to do something else. And I'm thinking that I want to try another color of paper under here as another layer. So I'm going to go and pull a piece of sort of this orangey color and see what that looks like. All right, so I've played around with it a little bit, and I've decided I'm just going to stick with the single layer black, just as I did with the sample card. So I'm just storing it now, and I'm going to burnish this and get a nice crease on my card. And I still need to cut this down. I'm just trying to decide whether, yeah, I'm going to cut it from the top. So, because I want to keep my little yellow butterfly at the bottom. So, yeah, so this needs to be 5 1/4. So, that, and I will save these pieces because I will be able to cut sentiments out of those. So you need to remember that when you stencil a panel, don't throw away these little pieces, because you can use these to cut words, and your words look really pretty. So that's just a hint, little tip for the beginners. Okay, so now I like that. I like that. Looks really good. So we've got our main butterfly, and now we need to put down our washi tape. Or we're not going to actually put it down, because I'm going to cut a piece of craft foam and put it behind my panel. But before I do that, I need to make sure that my washi tape is still going to work on here. It might be that I need to use a different type of washi tape. So, and you'll make adjustments when you're, well, I shouldn't say everybody has to make adjustments. I do. I know some people can just pop cards out, boom, 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 but I can't do that. It takes me a lot longer. So, excuse me, if you're going in a certain direction, and my greens didn't match up quite like I wanted, so I'm not sure this is going to work, but let's see. Well, yeah, look at that. It actually does. But I'm not going to put that on there yet, because we have to stamp our sentiment and we have to emboss. Now, I do know that I want to use a different sentiment on this one. And so where I place that sentiment is going to have huge impact on where I place my washi tape. So I was looking through my these sentiments, and I want to use a long stamp. So let's see. There's one on the side here that says, "Bad days happen. Be grateful." And for the good ones, and I can't get it on there. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp it this way on my card, the long way. But what that does is that changes my, now I'm going to have to think about this, because as much as I want to do that, it's not going to work with the washi. I just realized that that's going to be too much. Okay, so I think I'm going to just find another sentiment. There we go. This one says, even bad days have happy moments. So we can still use our days of the week washi tape on here. Yeah, that'll work. I like that. Okay. So I'm going to stick this down, and the good thing about washi tape is it pulls right back up. And it's not going to damage your work. Yeah, so I think that'll work just fine. And I'm going to put some white splatter on here. I was going to do gold, but I think I'm going to do white. So that's working. That is working. So what I'm going to do now, and you don't need to watch me do this, I'll do it off camera. I'm going to cut a piece of white craft foam. This panel is 4 by 5 1/4. So I'm going to cut my foam so that it is 3, excuse me, and 7/8 by 5 and 3/8. I think that's it. Anyway, it's going to be 1/8 of an inch all the way around, smaller than my panel. And I'm going to attach that to the card, and I'll come back and show you how I'm going to do that. Before I do anything else with this panel, I wanted to make sure that I got my sentiment in place. And what I decided to do was to keep the seriously that I used on this card, where it says seriously, bad days. It's not a bad, it's just a bad day, not a bad life. I left the seriously in place, but then I put our new sentiment, which is even bad days have happy moments. So I just want to solve that dilemma. When I'm working, if I can't figure out something, it sticks in my head, and it really makes me get stuck in place. So I have to sometimes go out of order just so I can keep moving forward. All right, so now that I know where my sentiment's going to be placed, and I have marks on here, so I know where to put my card to get it back in place. And you know, the great thing about having a stamp press is that you just can move it around till you get it where you want it. I want to put splatter on here, and the last time my gold splatter did not show up as well as I wanted it to. And so I'm thinking that I'm going to use white splatter on this one. And I'm going to try to do it over here, and hopefully I won't make a mess. So my splatter has dried. I use both white splatter and gold splatter, and the white splatter is subtle, very subtle, as is the gold, but you can see the gold on there, and then you can see the white. And with distress inks, really, to get the watermarks in it, all you have to do is just take a little water and flick it with your fingers, and because it's reactive with water, it will give you that look. Okay, so now it's time to do our sentiment. I could put my foam tape on now and then stamp the sentiment. I've done that on my Stamping Pro, and it works perfectly, but I think I'll take the safe route, because just when you get overconfident on doing something or doing a technique, something happens. So this is the embossing powder tool, and I'm just going to take it and wipe my card. And even though I know I'm only going to emboss in a small area, I don't want the embossing powder to stick anywhere on the card. So it's that simple to just wipe it down. All right. And now I'm going to position my card. Yeah. I think I remember where my marks were. There. There. And I can see once nope, I need to move you over just a smidgen. I guess it was on that side. Another little smidgen. Okay, I really have to stand up to do this. I want to make sure that those were my marks, but apparently I was off center a little bit and I didn't notice, but that's why I check before I stamp. And there's still a little bit cool. Let's see. All right, so that's perfectly placed, and it's important that you get it right. All right, so now that that's correct, I'm going to take my Momenta black ink, and I'm just going to ink up my stamp. Okay, and I will stamp this a number of times just to get the darkest impression I can before I put on my embossing ink. And there's no danger of this ink getting on the card because, but I always just wipe it off. And I take nothing for granted. Alright, and now this down again and put pressure on it to make sure that I'm getting a good impression. Yep, and one more time. I probably need to put some more ink on my pad. Okay, so this should do it. Okay, yeah, so that's good. Now I'm going to take my baby wipe and I'm going to clean off my stamp, being careful not to move it. So I'm just pouncing again. I'm not rubbing because I don't want to change the position. Put you back in your home. You can go in the trash. Then I'm going to take my Versamark pad and make sure that when you use this embossing powder, you want to make sure that your images, you get it completely covered or you won't get a good impression. And I usually do it twice because I'm just paranoid. So I'll put another layer. Okay. And now I will take my panel, my face panel for my card, and cover it with the clear embossing powder. And I like to fully cover the image. And some people just drop it like this, and I'll do that on the second pass, but on the first pass, I like to make sure that I've covered it and that every bit of that has picked up ink. I'm going to heat emboss this from the back first and then from the front. Doing it on the back helps set your embossing powder and your ink, and it also helps with curling, because you will get some curling if you do your your back first, then your front, it'll straighten out. And you have to move it slowly and sort of at an angle. Okay, until all of your ink is melted. You don't want to do it too long because it can burn and you'll have a bad spot on your card. But that is perfect, I would say. Let's try to. Yeah, that's pretty good. I think if I turn on one of these lights, we might be able to see better. Let's see. Not really. Didn't make that much difference. And I'm going to clean my stamp off because the embossing watermark ink is sticky. And so I don't want this to stay on my stamp. So I'm going to just take a second to clean this off. Okay. And I'll leave it on the stamp press, and I'll put my stamps back where they belong later. Okay, put that away. And now we're ready to put our craft foam on the back of the card. So I'll wipe this down. I've got the baby powder from the embossing tool all over my there's my bag. Okay, paper towels. I'm still here. I'm drying off my work surface. I really like this little hack. This is the best thing for $4. Okay, so we have a little curling, and I have a makeup brush that I use to just brush my card off when I'm done embossing. Okay, now I'm going to take a piece of craft foam. I use the Darris Fun Foam. It's the right thickness for me. They have some that's very thick, and you might not want to use that because it'll make your card super heavy, and you don't want that, especially if you plan on mailing it. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take our Fun Foam and we're going to put double-sided tape on. If you have the sheets, which I do, I just don't feel like, I'm too lazy to go get it and cut it. And the tape works just fine. I just usually put 3 of these wide pieces on, and then I add my wet glue before I put it down. And I turn it over and do both sides, of course. Move this down. No, that's not quite in the center, but it doesn't matter. And, you know, I try to get it as close to the edge as I can. I'm not always successful. But I've never had a card deconstruct on me, so I guess whatever I'm doing, it's working okay. I've not had any complaints. Okay, so this is what you need your pokey tool for. We use the pokey tool to remove the tape from the release paper. And once you get up under there and get it going, then you can just strip it off. Oops, let me put that on my guard. Okay. Now I'm going to add some wet glue to the back. I'm going to shake my glue. And I put the glue on top of the tape so that I can move the tape around, and I put it in the empty spaces between the tape. Okay. Then I turn my card front over so that I can try to get this in the center. And that's still too long. Let's see. Get my trusty dusty scissors out here. I think I whacked off too much then, but it'll be all right. Don't look at that. Oh, I can. Don't stick. Oh, Lord. Oh, well. I'm stuck with what it is. This is just one little corner. That is, let's see. Oh, you can't really see it. Oh, wonderful. Thank you. My angels are looking out for me tonight, because I was about to have a little meltdown. Okay, and now I'll remove the tape from this side. And then repeat the process with the glue. You don't need a lot of glue, just to swizzle. You don't want to put too much on here. Okay. And this we are going to adhere to our black cardstock. Let's lay that down like that so we can center our panel. Okay. That's good. Everybody's where they're supposed to be. And I have some green, just regular copy paper, but it's, you know, the 24-pound paper, but it's green. I'm going to put that on the inside. Now let's see if we can get our washi tape down. So we'll get this, and these are printed backwards. You should see me when I'm working on my planner. I'm like, seriously? You have people such as myself who are challenged by things like this. Let's see. Trying to get this straight and right at the edge. Okay. And I got my little scissors. I don't know where my little baby scissors are. But I'm trying to be very careful with this. I decided to let it run over and then go back and trim, because where are my detail scissors? Where did you go? Oh, there you are. I'm sorry. I got something stuck in my throat. And then this little piece, if I can't cut it off, then I'll just press it down. But I'm going to try to see if I can cut it without cutting my panel. And I did. So there we go. That's down. The last thing that we need to do is to put on our sequins. Let's see, right here. I'll be right back. Okay, so I had to go grab my sequins. I forgot to bring them over. And I think I want to use the purple ones on here as well. So I'm just going to take my tweezers and decide where I want them. So I think I want one there in that corner, and I want one there. And there's no rhyme or reason to where you put sequins. You just find a spot where you think they look good and plop them down. Okay, I'll play around with these on my own time. Okay, to put my sequins on, all I do is I put a little dab of glue on my craft sheet. And this is an old craft sheet that I cut into little small pieces so I could use it when I'm doing tasks like putting on sequins. So I just put the glue on there, and then I take my tweezers and dip my sequins into the glue. I had a lady ask me online how did I get my sequins to stay on my cards, because she said she never could get hers to stay, and I was like, mine just stay once I use the glue. But this books by hand glue, I talk about it a lot because glue is a big deal in crafting, and it took me years to find this particular glue, and the only reason I found it was because I started bookmaking, and you use it to bind the spine of your book. And so you know if it's strong enough to hold the pages of a book together with them having to be open and closed, it's strong enough for paper crafts. And it's also flexible. So your card, you know how sometimes you do a card, you put on an embellishment and the glue dries hard and your card gets a little stiff feel to it. You won't have that problem with the books by hand glue. I am going to finish this card off by putting a piece of 24-pound paper inside, and I don't use glue for this. Generally, I just use a tape runner, and I use my little craft mat in case I run off the page, as I often do. So just go across there and across there. Just go, oops, stick to that. And then here you just have to put it down, and what happened? No, 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 no. I'm not sure what happened. I can't pull this up. Let me see if see if I can do this off camera. Okay, I was able to pull that up. Like I said, my angels are on it tonight. Let's see. I think because it's 2 o'clock in the morning, that might be having an effect on my ability to do this. There we go. And so that's the inside of the card. You don't have to put anything on the inside. I mean, well, for a black one, you're going to have to put white paper in there for them to be able to write on. But when you do your card and it's white, you don't have to. And I never decorate, well, I say never, almost never decorate the inside of my cards. Because usually these are being sold to people or given to people who are going to give them to other people. And so I don't put anything on the inside. I leave that entirely up to them. Okay, so there we have another beautiful stenciled card. It's very easy to do. You just take your favorite stencil and do layers and create your own background and create your own interests on your project. That is going to do it for me from here for now. I hope you will tune. Thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate it. Have a good weekend. Bye.